Remember, if you do not ask, you will not get, right? If I would have never have called Mark and asked him for another property, right? And then asked him if he wanted to give me money, right? To basically lend to me to go buy more investment property, I never would have gotten it, right? So go out there and ask for the sun, right? You might just get the moon.
Welcome to the No Limits Podcast, where limits do not exist, where you can create cash flow, equity, and real freedom with the power of real estate.
3, 4. Now, we will begin.
Welcome to the dojo.
How to Structure Creative Deals Part 3, the owner carry. Before we jump in today's content, if you have not been over our website, NoLimitsRealEstateInvesting.com, I've got a gift there for you. This is the No Limits Wholesaling Map, and whether you're trying to do your first deal or you're trying to scale your business to 7 or 8 figures and step out and have a business that throws off cash month after month after month without your personal involvement, you've got to download the map. This is the massive action plan. So I don't care where you are in your journey. This is the exact blueprint that can take you to your promised land. So go to NoLimitsRealEstateInvesting.com and download the map today. So let's talk about today's creative deal, right? This is the owner carry. And I love to tell stories of real deals that I've done in my career and on the street. And there's no fluff here, right? There's no BS. I'm going to tell you exactly how it went and how you could start to explode your net worth and build your cash flow. You know, I absolutely love wholesaling. If you have been listening to me for any length of time, it's a great way to generate fast cash, large chunks of cash, build a team. Very simple and scalable. But if you want to build your net worth, some of these techniques, man, they are good. When I was writing these episodes, I was like, man, I should do some more of these deals. And these past 3 episodes, this is the third of the 3, have just put a smile on my face because I know these deals are out there for you, right? These are very high 5-figure, 6-figure deals, and they are at the tip, just the tip of your fingertips. You can do these deals. It doesn't take extraordinary smarts. Actually, if you are of below average intelligence, you're probably better off because you're not going to overanalyze this podcast, right? If you, or the details, if you just listen to me and go out there and do this, you're going to make some money and some very, very, very large chunks of cash. Now, I've got 2 rules when it comes to creative finance. Number 1 is never assume what the seller will or will not take. And number 2, if you don't ask, you won't get. And notice this is the recurring theme if you listen to the 2 previous episodes. All right. So a few years ago, a seller called me and says, Todd, I've got another property that I want to sell you. Now, the key word there was another because a year before we had bought his property for cash, right? We had just wholesaled this deal. I believe we had purchased it for $280 and we had wholesaled it for $340, right? A pretty clean wholesale deal. And if you don't know what wholesaling is, you can listen to the other podcast episodes. Basically, we just locked it up on a contract and assigned it to another buyer and made a cool $60,000. And he was very happy with the transaction and wanted to do business with us again. So he says, Todd, I've got this other property and I don't want to just let you steal it from me like you did the last one. And he kind of laughed. He says, I need more money for this one. This one is nicer. I said, okay. So I went and I met with Mark and we sat down and he loved Diet Coke. And so he brought me out a Diet Coke and he says, I love Diet Coke. And just a little tip here, if he's drinking Diet Coke and he tells you that and offers you a Diet Coke, right? Do not go on your health kick and not drink the Diet Coke, right? Drink the Diet Coke. So me and Mark, after him telling me that he drinks 8 Diet Cokes a day, I'm enjoying my Diet Coke with Mark, and he starts telling about his second property, and he wants to sell it to me. Not for as low as the other one, but he's still going to give me a good deal. So I asked Mark, I said, why do you want to sell me the property? And he says, well, I spent all the money from the last deal that we did. And so this house is a little bit nicer. And so I want to sell this to you for more than my last property. And so I looked at the house and it was a little nicer, right? It was right next door to it. And I thought that was kind of funny. And the house was worth about $380,000 in as is condition. He agreed to sell it to me for $330,000. Now, I could have wholesaled this deal, but here's what he said. He says, Todd, listen, I spent all this money in a year. I'm really bad with money, right? Obviously, I spend everything and this is no good for me. So why don't you pay me in payments? And so I just can't believe my ears, right? I'm just, keeping my mouth shut and just listening. And I said, well, how much do you need? He goes, well, I need about $2,200 a month to live. I said, okay. So I go, how many payments of $2,200 a month do you want? And he goes, well, how about until, this whole thing is paid off? So I said, okay, we signed the paperwork and I took it over to escrow. We bought the house. I got the place for $0 down, right? I started paying this guy $2,200 a month and I paid that house off, right, in a number of years. So do the math, right? $330,000 divided by 2,200 and I paid it off. Now, towards the end, this gentleman actually said, listen, Todd, I want to be cashed out a little bit early, right? Needed the money for something else. I didn't really get into the details. And so he actually gave me a little bit of a discount on that note. Okay. Long story short, I pretty much own that house free and clear. I sold that house about a year and a half ago. The numbers were $480,000. Remember, I bought it for $330,000. Okay, but the crazy thing is that I actually paid this house off because there was no interest on the property. So I did rent it out. There was a negative cash flow, right? I only could rent it out for $1,800 a month. Plus I had taxes and insurance, but the deal was really, really good, right? It was worth it because I didn't have to pay interest. And I know that I was going to pay this house off just so quickly. So I sold the property, right? And I got about $480,000 when I sold this thing, right? That was an all profit because, I was making principal payments every single month, but rent was helping to offset that. Had a negative cash flow about $600 a month, but I had money coming in from obviously my wholesaling business. And that is the benefit, right? When you've got a real business and you're generating leads every single day and generating cash, sometimes you can afford to take a negative cash flow and enjoy doing deals on that. If you had a rule that you were never going to take negative cash flow, you would have missed out on this deal. And so that $480,000 when it hit my bank account was pretty exciting. That really moved the needle there. I was like, wow, this is great, right? And so I remember moving that money from one of my business accounts to one of the accounts that my wife controls. And she was like, what's this? And I was like, oh, a house we just sold. She was like, I didn't even know we owned that. I said, well, we don't. I just sold it. So that was really, really exciting. But the deal is not over, right? This story, it does not end, because what jogged my memory of this story is 30 days ago, I decided to call Mark. Now, remember, I've got a team who closes deals for me, right? But this was a deal that I had done quite a few years ago. And this relationship has been built on trust and me always keeping my promises to him and sitting down and enjoying those Diet Cokes and just talking about life, right? And so Mark sees me as a source of money, right? He looks at Todd and thinks, this guy gives me my money. So I call him up and I say, Mark, do you have any more houses to sell me? Because I knew that he actually had some more coming down the pike. And he says, no, I just sold a couple for full retail price. And I'm thinking, oh, he's done selling me houses. And all of a sudden my noggin goes on because his pain point was that he was no good with money, right? And I said, well, Mark, do you have any money that you would like to give me, right? So that you don't hold on to it, right? So that you don't spend it. He goes, yes. He goes, but this time I want some interest. I said, okay. I go, how much interest? He says, well, I want 3% interest. I said, okay, how about you give me $100,000 and I will pay you back in monthly payments of $2,000 a month. And I will give you 2% instead of 3%. And so we shook hands. He said, deal. And he just wired $100,000 into my bank account about 3.5 weeks ago, right? So this was just so quickly. I called him about 4 weeks ago. Took about 3 days for him to wire the money and for us to draw up the paperwork. So now I got 100 grand and I'm paying 2% interest on this money. Now, I don't know about you, but it's really, really hard to find money for that cheap. So what am I doing with that 100 grand? Because now I have this 100 grand. I'm like, oh man, I got to get this to work, right? So now I am actually looking for another mobile home park to buy and to use this as a down payment. I think I've identified one, but actually having this 100 grand really, really, really just put some pressure on me to go find another deal and use that cash. And so I want to encourage you, right? Go meet with sellers, ask them what their needs are. Never assume what they will or will not take. And remember, if you do not ask, you will not get, right? If I would have never have called Mark and asked him for another property, right? And then asked him if he wanted to give me money, right? To basically lend to me to go buy more investment property, I never would have gotten it, right? So go out there and ask for the sun, right? You might just get the moon. So I'm going to ask you, if you have not shared this show, please copy and paste the link to the show and text it to 3 or more of your real estate friends or partners who you think need to hear this. I would really appreciate it. I also see your reviews on iTunes, and I want to thank you for those. I really, really appreciate that. It lets me know that you're listening. And so if you're listening to this and you have not left a review on iTunes, please go ahead and do that. We really, really, really appreciate that. Go out there, go solve some problems, ask some really, really, really thought-provoking questions, and ask, because a big deal is right around the corner.